Lumpy Pear's Adventure, Episode 12. It was very early and Lumpy could not sleep. He got one of the worst night's sleeps ever in his life. He looked over and the old man was still sleeping exactly where he fell asleep after eating dinner. Nightmare was asleep too. How could anybody sleep with all of these mushrooms mooing and mooring all night long? Lumpy could not wait. He was so excited to get going and find this city on this map. Apparently, the old man knew where it was, and he was asleep, so Lumpy decided he would clean up the camp, but he would do it a little bit noisy. Not too much to think that he was doing it on purpose, but noisy enough that it would wake everyone up. The mushrooms were already awake. They were awake all night, it seemed. And so he started cleaning things up, putting things away. Nightmare woke up kind of bothered. Why are you up so early? I guess Nightmare was used to hearing all those loud noises. But Nightmare actually threw up. He was sick. He didn't even want to walk. Oh dear. He looked over at the old man, who was starting to wake up, rubbing his eyes. He said, "Oh, you're awake then, huh, Blockface? Well then, why don't you tell me about what you were going to tell me about last night before you totally crashed? You were out like a light." "Oh, what was I supposed to tell you about?" "Oh, the city on the map. Oh yeah, it's not far from here. I think I said it was 10 days. No, you said it was 3 days. Oh, maybe I meant it was 1 day. Well, I can take you there. I know how to get there the quick way." "The quick way?" "Yeah, we'll be there in just a few hours." "What? A few hours?" Lumpy just decided, okay, we're going to follow this guy. So they finished packing things up, and Nightmare did not want anybody to ride on him. And the old man walked so slow, and the hundreds, if not thousands of mushrooms followed them. Lumpy said, "Okay, Blockface, you take the lead. Where are we going?" Blockface started walking south. This whole time they were traveling north. "Where are you going?" "The map says the city is this way." "Oh, you're right." And the old man turned around, and as soon as he turned around, he tripped and fell on the ground and died. "What? Hey, wake up, Blockface, wake up." But he wouldn't wake up. He really did die, right then and there. He was a really old guy. Lumpy ran over and tried to help him, but it was no use. Oh my goodness. I did not see this happening at all. "Nightmare, we should have let him ride on top of you." Nightmare couldn't do it. Nightmare was just sick and so sick and moving so slow. And Nightmare was looking kind of puffy all over. Especially in Nightmare's tummy. Did you eat too much apples or something? So he sat there. Lumpy started crying. He thought, this poor old man. And while he was sitting there crying, all of a sudden, the ghost of the old man showed up right out of the body. "Hey, Lumpy, it's me." It freaked Lumpy out. He couldn't believe what he was looking at. "You're a ghost?" "Of course I'm a ghost. I died, didn't I?" "Yeah, but I can see you." Yeah, that's interesting," the old man thought. "I don't remember seeing ghosts when I was alive. Oh, boy, I feel much better. And, man, I can remember all kinds of things. You know, when you get old, you start forgetting stuff." "Oh, but, being a ghost isn't that exciting." As he started swishing around real fast, going through trees, through the mushrooms, through Nightmare, and stopped right in front of Lumpy's face. Wow, this is fun, but it feels weird because I don't feel anything. I I don't even have to breathe. Huh. Weird. It was weird. It was weird. And he even had on all of his clothes that he was wearing, but they were in ghost form. Well, this was just the most craziest thing Lumpy had seen yet. Even crazier than the Enderman King, if you can believe that. So he said, well, okay, since you can remember things, can you remember where we're going? Oh, yes, the city. That's right. The old man, who's now a ghost, started heading south again. Where are you going? I thought it was north. Oh, yeah, you're right. And I thought you said you could remember things. Well, I can remember some things, I guess, but not everything. So they headed north. And it wasn't even a few hours before they reached a town. Wow, look at this. And all of the mushrooms followed Lumpy and Nightmare, who was not looking too good. He puked up all his dinner and just was so slow and so miserable. But they came to this town, and Lumpy was so glad that it was so close. Lumpy looked at the map, and he looked at the city, and he thought, is this really where I'm supposed to be? It seemed too close. The guy said it was 3 days away, then it was 10 days away. But who knows? What do I know? But he noticed the first thing was a farm. He went over to the farm and knocked on the door, and a person answered. Not a villager. It was a person, like Blockface. Hi. I'm traveling with my horse and this ghost. A ghost? Yeah, he's right here standing next to me. Can you see him? No, I don't see anybody. Okay, well, I'm traveling with this ghost. His name is Blockface. I said, Blockface? What are you talking about? Blockface just left town 2 days ago. I was like, well, yeah, he was with us and he died. He died? That's right. But he says he's feeling better now because his old body was just getting worn out. Anyway, he's with me right here. Blockface just kind of floated there and shook his head like, how you doing? And he said, I'm Lumpy, and this is my horse Nightmare, who's not feeling too well, and I noticed you're a farmer and you have animals. And I was wondering if you could help me fix my horse. And if you can fix my horse, well, I'll give you all these hundreds of mushrooms. Or thousands, however many there are. It looks like you've got a pretty big farm. By the way, what's your name? My name's Anderson. Well, pleased to meet you, Anderson. What do you say? I'll give you all these mushrooms if you can help my horse. I don't know why he's so sick. Okay, I'll take a look at him. So, Anderson walked out and took a look at Nightmare. He looked in Nightmare's eyes and looked at Nightmare's mouth. And he said, you don't know much about horses, do you? He's like, what do you mean? Lumpy said, well, this horse of yours, you said is a he. And I thought when you said Nightmare, you called it a mare, which is a girl horse, which is what this is. And Nightmare is pregnant. You're going to have baby horses. What? Lumpy could not believe what he was hearing. Nightmare, you're a girl horse? Lumpy really didn't know anything about horses. I tell you what, Anderson said. Why don't you take your Nightmare over into my pasture? I have a nice corral, and she can hang out there. This Nightmare of yours can hang out there till she has her little baby horse. How does that sound? Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Anderson. All right, now as for all these mushrooms, I don't know if I want thousands of mushrooms, but I do have a ranch back here that's big enough. So let's just put them back in here. And why don't you go over to the restaurant down the road and get yourself a bite to eat. Because you look like you've been traveling for at least a few hours, which is exactly how long they were traveling. Well, the ghost of Blockface was not hungry because ghosts can't eat. And Nightmare was in the corral, laying down and feeling a little bit better just to lay down and not have to travel. So Lumpy walked all the way over to the restaurant in town, opened the door, and who does he see behind the counter? Anderson. Anderson, you own this restaurant too? Yeah, I own a restaurant and a farm. That way I can have the food, and then I can cook it up and serve it to the customers. Oh, that's nice. What do you recommend? Well, I have stew, and I have spaghetti. Well, I'll have a bowl of stew. That sounds good. Okay, stew it is. So Anderson went back into the kitchen. You could hear all kinds of clanging and banging. And Lumpy sat there, and he actually had a chance to breathe. And Blockface was sitting across the table from Lumpy, just staring at him. Anderson brought out the stew and put it at the table and said, I'll be back in a minute. I've got some things to take care of in the kitchen. So Lumpy's trying to eat his stew while a ghost is staring at him, which is a really uncomfortable feeling if you've ever had a ghost stare at you when you're eating anything. Blockface says, wow, that looks good. You know, the meal you made wasn't bad, but I sure do love Anderson's stew. Well, yeah, I guess I can't give you any. That was your last meal. I didn't know I was feeding you. It's like, well, I don't know if this is the place on the map. I'll have to ask Anderson. So he waited for Anderson to come back, and he sat right where Blockface was sitting. Blockface said, hey, I was sitting here, but Anderson couldn't even hear him or see him. So Blockface scooted over. He said, now, what brings you into my town here? Anderson said. Well, I have this map and this book, and I've been having dreams, and all kinds of crazy things have been happening. Fascinating. So Lumpy told him all about it and asked if he knew of anything of a map or a special city, or if he could read the book. So Anderson took a look at the book and said, yeah, I've seen stuff like this before, and it's north of here, and you see more and more of it as the further you go north. So, well, have you, how far have you been north? Have you been to this city on this map? No, I don't think I have. I think I'd remember a city that kind of looks like that. The map had a very interesting drawings around the city. And so he said, well, maybe I'll go get some supplies from the store down the street, and I'll come back and see how Nightmare's doing. So he left a tip for Anderson at the table and said, thank you very much. That was delicious stew. I'll be sure to come back and get some more food later on. So Lumpy walked out of the restaurant and walked down to the store that sold all kinds of things he could see through the windows. He opened the door, and who is behind the counter? It's Anderson again. My goodness, do you own everything in this town, Anderson? Why, yes, I do, he said to Lumpy. Everything in this town is yours, huh? Did you build it all? Yeah, in all my free time, I built this whole town. Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's see. I've got a bunch of apples. Lumpy was trying to remember everything that was stored inside Nightmare's bag. Anderson said, I tell you what, you gave me all those mushrooms, so unless you start buying things that are really expensive, then we don't have to worry about price this time. So Lumpy bought all kinds of supplies and things that he thought would be helpful for his trip. And then he walked next door, and sure enough, in this potion shop, there was Anderson behind the counter. And said, I need some potions and things to maybe give me some strength or health, or protect me on this journey. What do you think? And how are you traveling so fast from building to building? Well, Anderson knew the town so well, he built secret passageways from every single building. So it took time for Lumpy to walk from store to store. Well, he reached the potion shop and picked up a few potions that would help him on his way. And he said, well, I better get going, but I don't know. What do you think about Nightmare? How do you think she's doing? Anderson said, well, I'd like to go with you, but I'll keep an eye on your horse for a while. And I'll maybe see if I can get some help around here. Maybe I can meet up with you. How does that sound? So Lumpy was excited. He said, yeah, that sounds good. And Lumpy just had a good feeling that he could trust this new friend of his with Nightmare. But then he thought, I keep meeting these friends of mine, Trouble, and I had to leave Trouble with the villagers, and now I have to leave Nightmare. And Blockface said, well, I'll come with you, Lumpy, because I can't do much around here to help a horse, but I can at least help you by zipping around ahead of you and telling you what's around corners and all that kind of stuff. Lumpy said, hey, that would be all right, having a ghost friend around. So he said, Anderson, I think I might be okay for a little bit on my trip. I've got Blockface here with me, or at least his ghost. So he said, okay, that sounds good, and we'll see you later then. So Lumpy gathered his supplies, and his legs weren't used to walking. He got so used to riding on Nightmare. But his rear end was happy because he knew that he wouldn't get bucked off of Nightmare. So off he went with Blockface, and they continued their journey for several hours, and the sun started going down. Hey, Blockface, would you mind doing me a favor? Just fly around and tell me if there's any bad things, like skeletons or creepers or spiders. Blockface said, I know this area, and my memory's pretty good. This is a safe area, but just for you, I'll fly around to make sure there's nothing bad so that you can sleep soundly. And you know what's funny? I just realized I'm a ghost. I don't need to sleep. So I'll stand guard. I'll watch over you, Lumpy, so you can get sleep, and if anything happens, I'll scream real loud in your ear. Okay, that sounds like a deal. So Lumpy made a fire to keep warm, and Blockface said, hey, look at this, and he went into the fire. And so it was actually kind of spooky to see Blockface's ghost in a fire. That was weird, but it was kind of comforting too to know that Lumpy had a friend that was kind of invincible, or at least he thought. He didn't know much about how ghosts work. So Lumpy fell asleep, and Blockface practiced being a ghost, and Lumpy just thought how helpful and nice Anderson was in taking care of Nightmare, and how helpful the villagers were back taking care of Trouble. Trouble must be, I hope he's happy, even though he's waiting for me to come back. The end of episode 12.